The Spore Warden utilizes his mushroom companion and the elements of nature to control the battlefield, while the Stabbomancer utilizes critical hits to quickly tear through enemies. In this video, I'm going to combine the two classes to create an epic glass cannon build in Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. What's up YouTube? Zero here, and today I have an epic glass cannon Spore Warden Stabbomancer build in Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. In this video, I'm going to go over the allocation of ability points. We're going to get in some gameplay, and I'm going to talk about why I absolutely love this glass cannon build. And at the end of the video, I'm going to go over some of the equipment I utilize for the build. But of course, this is Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, so my equipment is not necessarily the equipment you need to make this build absolutely epic. Without further ado, let's get into the ability point allocation. Of course, the Spore Warden has the Mushroom Companion. This Mushroom Companion can deal poison damage, it deals lunge damage, and does have a cooldown when it's taken out. I'm utilizing Blizzard for the Spore Warden, which is going to have 3 Frost Cyclones, control the battlefield, and deal frost damage. Then Bounty of the Hunt. This is a kill skill, where every time I get a kill, the action skill cooldown rate is going to increase so I can get my skill a lot quicker. Then I'm going to help out my Mushroom Companion. My Mushroom Companion's health and damage are going to vastly increase with Kindred Heart. And then Eagle Eye, the gun damage, and gun handling for my Spore Warden are going to be vastly increased. So I'm maxing out all 3 abilities in the first row. Then we have Bullseye also maxed out. My gun critical hit chance and companion critical hit chance are both going to be increased. Spore Cloud, this is going to be extremely important for my Mushroom Companion. Every so often, it's going to let one rip, which is going to taunt and deal poison damage. Then Affinity, which is also maxed out. This is going to increase my ability damage. Medicinal Mushroom. While the Fate Maker is in Save Your Soul, the mushroom is going to go and save the Fate Maker to revive him or her. So that is fantastic. If you do fall, your Mushroom Companion is there to help you out. And then also maxed out Windrunner. Every time I get a kill, the movement speed and fire rate is going to be increased for a duration. This is absolutely great as well. So you can maneuver the battlefield quickly, especially being a glass cannon. Headhunter, we are increasing our gun damage to critical hit areas. We have Wrath of Nature. The damage increase for a duration is increased when ability damage is inflicted upon an enemy. That damage is increased from all sources to that enemy for a time. And Play the Angles, not Angels. Gun critical hits have a chance to ricochet, dealing reduced ability damage. We're going to be utilizing critical hits a lot on this build, so that's going to be ricocheting a lot of our damage. Speaking of critical hits, the Stabbomancer increases critical hit chance by 30%. So we're going to have a very high critical hit chance on this build. Then we have Potent Poisons. This is going to increase our status effect damage and status effect duration, and exploit their weakness. Whenever the Fate Maker applies a status effect to an enemy, the affected enemy takes increased damage from all sources for its duration. And we have our last point, just 1 point in Arsenal, which increases melee damage, spell damage, and gun damage. Now the ability points, we're going to max out Strength, which is increasing our crit damage. That is extremely important. Then we're going to have 25 points invested in Dexterity, which is going to increase our critical chance. Of course, we're going to be focused on dealing a lot of critical damage on this build. And then finally, Wisdom. This is going to be 30 out of 30, increasing our status damage. Our build is focused on critical hits, so critical damage and critical chance are extremely important with Strength and Dexterity. And then Wisdom, we saw that we were inflicting a lot of status effects. We have Potent Poisons, from our Stabbomancer, which are going to allow us to increase a lot of extra status damage and status effects, and inflicting that status on our enemies is going to allow them to take more damage from all sources, so that increases our damage on enemies. We have a lot of critical hit chance and critical hit damage, which is going to even more increase our damage on enemies. And then from our Spore Warden, we have a lot of statuses dealt. We have our Blizzard that we're utilizing, which is going to increase our frost damage. We have our Mushroom Companion, which is going to deal poison damage. We have a lot of abilities from our Spore Warden that are dealing extra gun damage and ability damage as well. And then when our Blizzard deals damage to enemies, we're going to be dealing extra damage to enemies for a time, both from our status inflicted in Frost and just the ability damage itself from our Spore Warden. So the combination of our Stabbomancer, we're only investing 8 points from the Stabbomancer, but having that extra critical hit chance, along with dealing that extra status effect and status damage, is going to vastly increase our damage to enemies. Furthermore, our statuses from our Spore Warden, who controls nature, is going to vastly increase damage as well. On this class and setup, the combination of the Spore Warden and the Stabbomancer with the huge critical chance and critical damage, along with the extra status effects, I run through bosses insanely quickly. There have been bosses on the intense difficulty, that's the hardest difficulty in the game, that I've run through in less than 2 minutes on some of the chaos levels even. So this class is insanely great to tear through enemies. Of course, it's a glass cannon, it's built that way. But unfortunately, one of the drawbacks is going to be you're going to go into save your soul a little bit more often. There have been times I've been hit, and not only has my entire shield been taken away, but over half of my health has been taken away in one blow. That's one blow is taking away my entire shield and over half of my health. That's why having my Mushroom Companion by my side, increasing its damage output and health, as well as allowing my Mushroom Companion to come and save me when I'm in Save My Soul, is crucial for this build, because you're going to need to move around the battlefield, but when you get hit, you're going to get hit hard as well. That's another reason why we increase our movement speed with every kill. We're going to be killing extremely quickly, so the ability to move faster so we can constantly maneuver the battlefield and avoid damage is a must on this build. So investing in that from the Spore Warden is great as well. Utilizing Ricochet just further deals more damage to enemies across the battlefield. We want to kill as many enemies as quickly as possible. So that Ricochet at the end of the Spore Warden ability tree is absolutely fantastic for doing that. And you can see the gun I'm using right now, Livewire, is chaining that wire to other enemies. You can also see that all of my hits are raining down critical on enemies, just tearing through them like a knife through warm butter. I absolutely love this glass cannon build because, one, I can deal through bosses and camps in the overworld extremely quickly, and it's just fantastic to have. It's fun to run through enemies, not have to worry about spending time after time after time just in one area. And the Spore Warden is absolutely fun to use with my Mushroom Companion and Blizzard. Let me know what you think of this build in the comments section. Have you combined the Spore Warden with the Stabbomancer yet? And if you have, is your build similar to mine or is it completely different? So now let's get into the items that I'm utilizing. So I have a goblin pickaxe of blistering, and of course the main of this axe is that it's going to restore my health via dark magic, and it's also extremely quick to chop enemies. I have the Umbral Rogue Imp of Alarm. This legendary gun is absolutely epic. It deals fire damage, and of course we want to deal elemental status effects. So I have 2 fire, which is going to go through flesh. I have the rioting blazing volley of unseen depths, as well as the rogue imp that I just mentioned, and both are dealing fire damage, which is extremely important. Then I have another gun, another SMG, but this time I'm going to be dealing electric damage, which is going to run through shields. So the main setup of the Spore Warden Stabbomancer combo for this build, you want to deal those elemental effects, and of course I have a pistol that's going to deal poison. For my rings, I'm going to be focusing on gun damage. I want to make sure that my gun is dealing as much damage as possible. We are a glass cannon. We want to make sure we're dealing as much damage as possible. So for my shield, I have the Desperate Crying Apple. Of course, ogres are like crying apples. I just love this, but what's absolutely fantastic of this shield is when my health is below 50%, it's enchanted, so I'm going to regenerate health, and this shield in general regenerates my health. So I want to make sure that I'm regenerating health. If I do lose health, I can maneuver around the battlefield quickly with my kill skill. So let me do that if I ever lose health. So make sure you have something that regenerates your health. I have Pathfinder Boiled Leather of Cataclysm, which increases my Spore Warden power by 30, also increasing. We saw on our ability tree what we're increasing, some of our gun damage and some of our critical hits. And then triggering Buffmeister. This is a great spell. It's actually not dealing damage to enemies, it's buffing the user. So we're going to increase our damage dealt for almost 10 seconds. So if you can get the triggering Buffmeister spell, this is absolutely epic to have on this build because we're dealing a higher damage output. And of course, for my necklace, I'm increasing my Spore Warden power and fire damage because I do have 2 fire guns. I hope you enjoyed this video, and until next time, peace.